Hello, this is Jose Luis here at Parametric Camp, and welcome to another video in this playlist, web-based drawing apps, where what I would like to teach you is just how to write a very simple, very thin, very easy Photoshop-like drawing application. What that means is that you're gonna have brushes, and where I can say, for example, P, and then I can change to the red color, and I can change to the green color, and I can change to the blue color, pre-camp, and I can change to orange, I think, as well. Yes, right? And I can even change brushes, so I can do like a square brush, p-camp, all right? Or p-camp, right? And then I can press F, and then I'm going to download the file, which becomes a file, a bitmap that I can put on the internet, I can share with my family and friends, send us a message, and I can even do delete. So I can erase part of what I am drawing just with this kind of erase tool. So it's going to be very simple. It's barely 100 lines of code, and most of it is redundant, actually. And but it's going to be a really nice introduction to using P5.js, which is the tool that we're going to use. It's going to be JavaScript, and it's going to be base HTML, and it's going to be a continuation of the techniques that we have learned in the previous videos on this playlist. So I think I am ready to go. Shall we do this? Great! So this is going to be the first video in a series where I will want to build a drawing app incrementally with many different ways of interacting with the way we are drawing on the canvas. But for this first early version, what I would like to do is I would like to mimic a little bit the spirit of Photoshop and drawing with brushes, or that idea that as soon as I am moving my mouse and clicking over the canvas, I get immediate drawings, immediate color added to the pixels that are part of that canvas. All right, so this is going to be the main effect that we're going to go for in this app, and we will do a little bit of interplay with like how do I click, what is the size of the brushes, what things I can control, etc., etc. So we're going to do a little bit of that, mostly using the keyboard and using, like, we're not going to get a lot into UI elements, but that's going to be the main metaphor that we're going to use for this first stage of the drawing app. Okay, so how is that going to look? Well, like in the previous videos, I am going to start from a project called Drawing Brushes Start. In this project, what you can see is that I have a basic HTML file that has absolutely nothing. It just loads some styles. It loads the P5 library, and it loads a main sketch, which right now is doing absolutely nothing. Okay, so it's just printing hello P5.js to the console. Okay. And so that is the started project. If you want to follow this video coding with me as I go along, you're more than welcome to go to the GitHub repo, which is in the link of this video, download Drawing Brushes Start, and then that's where we're going to start coding, okay? The final project is going to be called Drawing Brushes Full, and you will also find it in the link that I have here underneath, all right? Okay, so what is the first thing that I'm going to do? The first thing that I would like to do is I would like to make sure that whenever I click the mouse, I draw some kind of shape on the screen. Actually, before that, I forget what I would need to do is I would need to create a canvas, right? So I'm going to create a canvas, and the canvas is going to be whatever, 400 by 400, maybe a little bigger, okay? And actually in P5.js, if you want to make sure that you are full screen, something that you can do is you can use the window width and window height variables, system variables that P5 gives you out of the box. So if I type here window width and window height, these two variables belong to P5.js, and P5.js makes sure that always, whenever the window is moving around, that the value of these two variables always represents the width and the height of the window in the browser. Okay? Beautiful. So if I save that, I now have a canvas element here. And then what I can do in my main draw function, remember this is a function that gets drawn over and over again very fast as an animation, roughly 60 frames per second, more or less. Think about the video. What I can do is I can write here whatever I want to do every time the animation refreshes. So what I can do is I can say if the user is pressing the mouse, right? So I can use also a similar variable like window width and window height. P5.js gives me mouse is pressed as a variable that already exists and that I can use to wonder if the mouse is pressed or not. So just to make sure that this works, I'm going to press to the console, mouse pressed, all right? I'm going to save this. This is going to reload, and you can see that the moment I click, you see all those mouse presses. I can zoom this up a little bit for you. So the moment I click, and I'm clicking right now, you can see that it is continuously adding messages and messages to the console. Okay, so that's great. So then what I can do here is I can say, well, instead of printing to the console, what I may want to do is I just may want to draw a circle on coordinates mouse X and mouse Y, also two variables that P5 give me, which always give me the center of where the mouse is on the screen. And then some random number, which is going to give me the size of the circle, okay? If I draw that, you can see that the moment I click, every frame that my mouse is clicked, I am drawing a circle that is centered on the mouse and that has a diameter of 50 pixels, right? You can see that by default, the size, you can see that by default, I have a black stroke around the circle and that the circle has a white fill. So if I want to do something similar to what I did, I can say I want no stroke and I want a fill color which is going to be 0. 0 means black, right? So now if I do that, you see that I get an effect that is much closer to what I had in Photoshop before, okay? But I actually like effects that are a bit more cumulative. So what if instead of a fill color that is black, what if I did red, okay, which is RGB 255 0 and 0, and then I gave it just a lot of transparency. Transparency is alpha, and then when alpha is 255, then it's completely opaque. But when I bring it close to 0, it makes it very, very transparent. So let's say that I choose a value of 24. That is pretty low, okay? So then what I'm going to get is all the circles that are adding on top of each other. And you can notice that at the moment I stop my mouse, you can see how it becomes darker because there's all these circles drawing on top of each other, okay? Which is kind of very nice if you ask me, okay? Of course, there is a few things that we may want to customize. So let's take a look at how could we customize, for example, the color of the brush that we're going to be using. But before we change colors, there's actually something else that I would like to explain. You have noticed how the way I have implemented the code right now, if I draw, let me say this again, if I keep my mouse pressed, every frame, it is drawing a new circle. So there is a cumulative constant effect being aggregated on my canvas that depends on the mouse being pressed every frame that P5 refreshes my canvas, all right? This may or may not be the effect that I'm hoping for. Because I'm trying to mimic the Photoshop metaphor, you can see that it is actually closer to what I want. But what if instead what I wanted was something that it was closer to, I click once and I get one single circle. You can see that right now, that is not exactly what's happening, because if for some reason I move my mouse a little bit, or if I let it click too long, the color builds up because of all this transparency, right? So that's not exactly what I'm getting. So what I would like to show you is a technique to instead make sure that when I click, only one circle is being drawn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment this out, and then I'm going to use a different function that and this is GitHub Copilot suggesting already things for me. I'm going to use a different function that P5.js has built in, which is the mouse press function. So I'm actually going to go to the P5 documentation, to the reference, right? And then what I would like to show you is that mouse is pressed is a Boolean system variable that has true if the mouse is pressed at any given time, all right? So this is very important, because what this does is telling me that system variable P5 already gives me this out of the box, and that I can check this at any time. Whereas if instead I went to the mouse pressed function, what you can see is that the mouse pressed function is a function that is called once, and only once, this is the important part, every time a mouse button, whichever one it is being pressed. What that means is that if I go here to my code and then I implement a mouse pressed function, what that will do is that I'm basically telling to P5, look at my code, and if you have a mouse press function, I want you to use that function and to run it once every time I click the mouse, all right? And then I'm just going to go with the suggestion, which is basically what I had here. I'm going to save this, and I want you to notice how I'm going to click, and even if I'm dragging, I'm still pressing my mouse here. Even if I'm dragging, I'm not drawing anymore. And if I press again, only one circle shows up, okay? So now, with this way, I have draw circle only once versus here, draw shapes continuously, all right? As you can see, right now having both is probably not a good idea, so I'm just going to keep one or the other. So this one is continuously, and this one would be just one-off, okay? This idea of a one-off interaction is going to be very helpful in the next video when I try to create more of like a click and drag interface for drawing shapes. It will be very useful, but it's also going to be useful for what we're going to implement next, which is the idea of switching between the colors that we want to use to draw brushes. Let's take a look at how to do that. I think it's going to be quite simple. So first of all, what I would like to do is I would like to define a variable that I'm going to call shape color, which is going to be one that we're going to use to keep track of what is the color that we want to be using to draw shapes at any given time, right? And something that I can do is that in P5, I can define color as an array of 4 numbers. So what I can do is I'm just going to go with the suggestions and start with the default of very transparent black, okay? So that is going to be 0, 0, 0, and then 25 as the transparency, right? Then what I would like to do is I would like to use this variable as the color that I'm going to be drawing with. And you can see that if I do that, now I have switched to a very transparent form of black or gray, okay? And then what I would like to do is I would like to make sure that when I press certain keys, I switch the color that I use for drawing. So just like I had mouse pressed, here in P5.js, there is a function called key typed, which basically operates very similar. This function is going to be called once every time a key is pressed, ignoring special keys like delete, Control, Shift, blah, 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 which we will take care of. And it looks something like this. You define a function called key typed, and then you basically handle every time you have a key, you handle what do you want to do for each one of those keys. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to implement function key typed, all right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for a suggestion. Yeah, that's fantastic. Look how good GitHub Copilot is. So I'm going to go with the suggestion, all right, which is if the key was uppercase R, then I want the color to be red with a bit of transparency. If the color is uppercase G, I want the color to be green. If the color is uppercase B, then it's going to be a blue color. Uppercase W is going to be white, which I'm not going to use for this one actually. And if it's uppercase K, then it's going to be 0, 0, 0, all right? Which is going to be black. So I start with black, then I'm going to do red, then I'm going to press G for green, and I'm going to press 4, and I can probably do bit more sophisticated colors. Like, what is this? C for cyan? I don't know. Can we try that? What is C? Oh, cyan, you're right. Okay, so what else do you have? Whoa, that's a lot of colors. So I guess yellow, magenta, orange, P. Should we try this? See how much is hallucinating. So yellow, and then M is magenta, and then O is orange. This is crazy good. And then P is pink. Is that what it is? And then L is lavender. A is, I don't know what this color this is. A is red. S, so I guess at this point this is hallucinating, right? Okay, so then we're gonna cancel this. All right. But good job, Google Copilot. That was pretty impressive. All right. Okay, so then I'm going to switch to yellow, etc., etc. All right. Now, the beautiful thing is that we can do colors, all right? But we can also use keyboard interaction to also change the brushes that we're going to be using. So for example, let's say that I have here I'm going to define another variable, and I'm going to call this shape mode, and I'm going to start with circle, all right? And then whenever the mouse is pressed, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say no stroke, I'm going to change the fill color, and then I'm going to handle the different cases. So if shape mode is circle, that I will want to draw a circle at these coordinates, all right? Otherwise, if the shape mode is a square, then I want to draw a square, which is also a function in P5, yes, right? And then what I would like to do here is I would like to add more cases. Then perhaps I'm going to do them here. So for example, here it's going to be colors, and then here I'm going to do shapes, and I'm going to start if key equals lowercase c, so I'm going to use lowercase for the shapes, then shape mode is going to be circle. Otherwise, if the key is S, I'm going to draw a square, all right? And then here, I can keep it as a different conditional, that's fine, okay? So we have C as the default circle. I'm going to do R, and now I'm going to, S. And then it's switching to a square, right? And yeah, and you can see that the squares are being drawn from the top left corner. So what I can do is I can switch in P5. There is a way to say that the rectangles should be drawn from the center. So I'm going to choose to square, and then the square is being drawn from the center. All right, beautiful. What else can we do now? I know what we're going to do. We're going to also use the keys to figure out and work with the size of the brush. So I'm going to add another variable here. I'm going to call this shape size. I'm going to use this to, I'm going to replace here with shape size, and I'm going to copy it here. And then for the keys, I'm going to do shape size, all right? And what am I going to do? I'm going to say if the key equals the plus sign, all right, then shape size is going to be increased by 10 units, okay? And then if it's minus, then shape size is going to be decreased by 100. This is how trivial or how basic what we're doing is, that Copilot has no problem giving me suggestions with this. All right, so now you can see that I have these circles. I'm going to press plus a couple times, and the circle is much bigger, plus a couple times again. And we may want to add here some feedback. For example, shape size is now, for example, shape size. And I'm going to also copy that here. So I'm going to press plus, and now I have a very big circle, and I have a very large square, and minus. All right, and we have very tiny circle and very tiny circle. All right, so this is working. Okay. Now, what is the last thing that I would like to do here so far? Well, I probably want to be able to delete. So just like I have in Photoshop, I have the eraser kind of tool, and I can like delete what I have. Maybe I want to implement something like that. So let's say that for me, that is going to be part of the shape mode. So with shape modes, we have circles, ellipses, but maybe what I want is I want to have a shape mode that is basically deleting. So I'm going to say if key equals D, so shape mode is going to be equal to delete, not diamond in this case, all right? And then here I'm going to add another if shape mode is delete. Then what's going to happen is that, very good. So we're going to change, and instead of doing whatever shape color we had before, we're going to switch to a fill color, which is full white and is full opaque. And then we're going to draw a circle of whichever size, actually no, and we're going to draw a circle whichever size we have. And let's do this then. So I'm going to draw circles, I'm going to increase the size, I'm going to draw a bunch of squares, and I'm going to decrease the size, and I'm going to switch to delete with the D. And you can see, oh, I'm going to switch to delete, and it's not working. Shape mode delete. Oh, because I didn't save it, sorry. Okay, so, all right, and I'm going to increase this, and then I'm going to switch, I'm going to switch to delete, and you can see that, and that I am deleting here. All right, which is pretty cool. Okay, beautiful. So I think with this, I am very close to where I want it to be, with one exception. If this is a drawing tool, we probably want to be able to save our creations, right? So P5 actually has a very nifty function called save canvas. And what this function does is that whenever you call it, it saves whatever file from your browser. It saves the canvas as an image file from your browser. So let me, for example, say this. Let's say that here at the very end of the keys, we're gonna do saving, all right? And here I'm going to do if the key is S. No, I already have S for square. So how can I do that? So if it's S, so I'm gonna call this F for file, okay? And then I'm going to say yes, save my canvas, and the name is going to be my canvas, and it's going to be PNG, all right? And then I'm going to draw this, and then I'm going to press F, and you can see that this got saved to my downloads folder, and if I double click, I do have my image here, all right? Now, there's one minor thing, which is that if I press F again, you can see that because the file name is my canvas, I get this redundant naming on it. So something that I can do is I can use a little bit of code to improve this, okay? So what I would like to do is I would like to have a name that is basically the name of the file, and then the year, the month, the day, the hour, the minute, and the second, like that, so that if I save a lot of files, they save and they show up on my folder in basically date order, okay? Let's take a look at how to do that. All right, I just gave it a try offline and it's kind of fun, so I want to show you what I just did. So because I'm running GitHub Copilot in the background of my Visual Studio Code, then what I'm going to use is I'm going to try to get help from Google Copilot. GitHub Copilot, all right? GitHub Copilot. Copilot is really good. If you write a comment and you describe what do you want, Copilot will do a pretty good job at helping you write code interactively. So I'm going to say a function that returns the date and time in a year in this kind of format. So what I want is basically that kind of format. And then you can see that already it starts suggesting me the function name, and then it generates a date object, and from the date object it generates the full year. and the month, which is going to be the month plus 1, because months in JavaScript start with 0, which is kind of weird. The date as the day number, the hours, the minutes, and the seconds, right? And then you can see that it's going to return year, month, day, hours, minutes, and seconds, okay? Now, this is not going to work well for the reasons that I'm going to show in a second, but here, let's say that I now change the name of the canvas to my drawing, to drawing, and then I'm going to say underscore and then plus get date and time. All right. If I do this and I save it, I'm going to draw here and then I press F, and you can see that the file downloads here very well. But you can see that the problem here is that if I zoom in, the file name is 2024-29, which basically has killed the zeros of the number 2 and the number 9. This is not good because then the numbers do not stack up properly. So I'm going to try this again, okay? And I'm going to add here to the description with leading zeros if necessary. Okay, so now I'm going to get time, date, full year, get month, and then you can see how it immediately starts padding everything with trailing zeros. And then if I now use the same function again, you can see, all right, and then if I save my file, if I save my file with F, you can see that now the file name has 2024-0209, blah, 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 10. All right. Like here, for example, one of these seconds did not have the trailing zeros. And if I now save another one and 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 another one, you can see that the file names stack up properly, you know, 10, 26, 27, etc., etc. Okay. All right. Fantastic. So I think I am pretty content with this. Okay. So this was a very simple, very basic drawing app that follows this Photoshop kind of model. The idea of like drawing and affecting all the pixels cumulatively, right? What I would like to do in the next video is I would like to improve this example to be able to have some kind of temporary geometry. So for example, let's say that I wanted to draw something where as a one-off, I want to click and drag and make sure that I can control the shape and the size of the object before it gets imprinted. Because of how we're working right now, that cannot happen, right? Because we are, because everything that we draw on the screen is always going to stay there, right? So I'm going to show you this technique to have a background buffer so that we can draw temporary geometry in the front and then have the background be a different layer, if you will, okay? So that's going to be on the next video, which is going to come right after this one. So if you thought this was interesting, you're more than welcome to check the next video on the playlist and maybe like this video, subscribe to the channel, say hi on Discord, leave a comment, whatever you want to do. Okay? Thank you very much and see you on the next video. Bye-bye.